Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I'm a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on April 1st, 2022 at approximately 4:39 a.m. PST. Finally got things organized in a sense. Now, before I get into it, to be clear, I returned to this lifetime, to this specific lifetime for one primary purpose, and that is to pass on a simple message to everyone in existence. That message, simply put, is that working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. Now, society has collapsed badly. It's turned in on itself, and it is going down a very dark path. This is not written anywhere that it has to go this way. All the foreshadowings that have been done, all the predictions, all the revelations are simply the path that is most likely based on the path you're currently on. This does not mean it is written in stone. The future is not written. It never was. There were great warnings put out, and most people seem to have completely ignored them. Okay, we'll start with the obvious one. Okay, now, do understand, society's going down this road. There's no question. Now, if you like the video, give us a thumbs up. Do subscribe to the channel because there's a lot more information coming out. I do try and get in here once a day, but these are live videos. Meaning, when I get done, I simply double-check the date and then post it as is. Any double backs that I do, anytime you hear me stop and go back and change a word, this is quite intentional, and, well, it was intentional to start with. Now it's almost habitual. Okay, but here's the thing. Society is on a dark path. Okay, people are talking about war, they're talking about invasions, they're talking about how everybody's going to die. Okay, because what's happened is society has been taught to fear everything. Now, I don't blame the current leaders or the current parents. They were simply taught this way themselves. So this has been a regurgitation of the same garbage, the same fear that has been going on for centuries. Now, you can read the history books and they tell you all sorts of things. Okay, and here's I'm gonna light a few matches. I'm certain of it, in a manner of speaking. Okay, if you take a look at it, let's start with we can go back in religion, and we can go, religion talks about, in any one of the religions, almost any one of them, they talk about God creating everyone equal. And then they turn around in the same books that they talk about this being a loving God, they tell you, fear him. Okay, now, that's starting with religion. To this end, and don't just take my word for it, look into it yourself, do your own research. To this end, many of the books that were in, for instance, the Christian Bible, and I would lay odds it applies to other Bibles and other religious tomes as well. Many of the books that were in the original Bible were taken out of it and hidden because the people at the time decided that wasn't good. That wasn't a good thing to have. Okay, now we can start there and go, okay, now we know Christianity has gone sideways, and again, double check the information. Do not just take my word for it. I'm not picking on one religion, by the way. I happen to have been raised Christian. I do wholeheartedly believe in God and in Christ. Okay, now ironically, I believe in the same entity by many other names. Some of you worship Gaia. Okay, I know her as Itza. I believe in her as well. Okay, but I'm not here to prove one way or the other. Check your own information. If we look at the religious side of it, okay, you take a look at your 10 Commandments. Now get this. Okay, the 5th commandment says thou shalt not kill. Okay, but the reality of it is, if you go back to about 300 AD, the original 5th commandment said thou shalt not murder. And in case you hadn't noticed, there's a real big difference between killing and murdering. Killing ultimately means just taking someone's life with no provocation. Okay. With no functional provocation. Killing is what you have to do if you desire to survive. Okay, killing is done for food and or for defense. That's it. Not this issue of you don't worship the same person I do. Now that's where we start lighting matches. Now let's try the other one. There is all this stuff out there about slavery and about how the people were oppressed and what have you. And I do not debate the fact that the Dutch did bring the slaves over, the black people over in slave boats. I do not debate that at all. Okay, they absolutely did. The way they were treated was absolutely horrendous. But what you have to understand is that the Europeans bought the slaves from other black people. It is time to look at the reality of it. Okay, now do not get me wrong. I do not agree with slavery in the slightest. The reality is, even in a past life, when I did own plantations at that time, I had a whole different way of dealing with it. Okay, a whole different way. Okay, because I didn't agree with it then either, but I found a way to work with it, where the people I had working for me, yeah, they held the title slave, but the reality was I treated them the same way as I treated the rest of my people. Okay, now we take a look at this issue of talking about, skin color. We go back to World War II and it's happening again. Okay, and this is a stupid part of society. This really is. Back in World War II, when Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, you gotta look into the reasoning that Japan attacked Pearl Harbor in the first place, because there's always a cause and effect. There's always something that goes. Okay, yeah, sometimes that always is because somebody went right off the deep end. Okay, but back then, when Japan attacked, people started turning on the Japanese that had been living in the country for years. And I suspect, I haven't looked into it as far as Canada went, in all fairness. I'm up here, I'm in Canada. But I do know that the people that were living in the States, the Japanese people that had lived there, that had been born there, they were born in the States. And yet, the people of the world started looking at the Japanese wherever they were living and treating them as though they were the criminals. The same thing is happening now with Russia. Now, do not get me wrong. I do not agree with what is going on with the war. I've never agreed with war. War has never in recorded history brought peace. It's brought quiet, but that's all. Okay. Now, then we light the third match. People keep talking about First Nations and about the Native Americans. Well, newsflash, number one, I don't debate what the heritage is. Okay. But if you're born in this country, you're native. If you're born in this land, you're native. Doesn't matter where you're born. Wherever you're born, you're native. Okay, that's where you are. That's where you're indigenous to. How your ancestors got there is irrelevant. You're here. You're born here. You're native. Now, these are all things. I know this is going to tick people off. Okay, we take a look at, and again, do your own research. Okay, people look down, I've heard people look down upon many cultures, okay, because they're different from yours. I've talked to a lot of people. I've never looked at anybody as any different from somebody else. Okay, no matter what their social standing, their political alignment, their orientation, their gender, their age, none of it has made a difference to me. They're all the same. You're all worth exactly the same. And it's time that people realize that this is the way it is. If you take a look at it, no matter where you are in the world, if people are happy, they laugh, they sing, they dance, they do all sorts of things. Okay. If they're unhappy, they fight, they get argumentative, they get combative, they get depressed. Okay. Doesn't matter what color you are. Doesn't matter who you're worshiping. Doesn't even matter who you look at, whether or not you can see, whether you can hear. You're all in exactly the same boat. And frankly, you're all right here, right now. But society has been taught to fear everything. And now what's happening is you're turning on each other left, right, and center. Okay, if you desire this, well, quite frankly, self-deprecating foolishness, if you desire it to stop, then you yourself, and this is where I'm asking you to step up and help. One person cannot change the world, but one person can light the match to make it change. You have a choice. You can choose to go, the world's going to end, I'm just going to throw my hands up, I'm going to sit in the corner, going to plug my ears and wait till it's all over. Okay. Now, the reality of it is you've got that option. You have free will, you have free choice. Absolutely, I believe wholeheartedly in 3 laws, but compare these 3 laws to the ones that you follow. Doesn't matter how many there are. I only pay attention to 3. Be true to yourself first. Do unto others as you desire them to do unto you. Energy out, energy in. Okay, now compare the ones you follow, whether they are social laws, religious laws, legal laws, doesn't matter. Even personal laws, look at all of them. And I have yet to find one that does not fit into those 3. Absolutely, if you find one, please do let me know in the comments. Okay, people talk about, we're going to war, God's going to come and save us, aliens are going to come and wipe us out. Understand, first of all, God gave you free will by any name, no matter what you call them, God or her or it. God gave you freedom of choice, free will. And then he created everything good, everything bad, and when I mean everything, I mean even the one you call Satan, God created. Okay, and then gave you free choice to pick between the 2. Intriguingly enough, mankind on the whole, okay, you choose good things, but then you put people in power that are looking for a negative outcome or for a very self-serving outcome. You cannot have world peace if you permit war to happen. You cannot have a stable society if the laws that you build do not apply to everybody regardless of their standing. And I know there are many people out there that go, well, I worked hard for what I got. I have no doubt you did. I have no doubt at all. And I also have no doubt you did the best you could with what you had. Okay, I never intended, in all fairness, I fought the issue of ever getting into the spotlight at all. Didn't quite work out that way. Okay. But, as it turns out, the people in power, they are still people. They were still children. Every single one of you is a child. Every one of you. Anybody that was born into the human genome has a mother and father, even if you were born in a test tube. Okay, you've still got a mother and father. You just don't know who they are. Now, I cannot do a thing about about how you got to where you are in life. All I can do is offer the tools to guide you back to a more balanced life without focusing on the fear. This does not mean fear doesn't exist. This does not mean that bad things do not happen. It simply means that life has reached a point. We are where we are right here, right now, and this is the only time in existence that you can actually get anything done. Even if you put something off, I'm not doing it until tomorrow. When you get to it, it is right here, right now, no matter who you are. Okay. I mean, that's just the way that goes. Now, do I argue the point that there's aliens out there? Absolutely not. I've seen way too many of them. Okay. But are they here to invade? Frankly, if they were here to invade, they'd done it a long time ago. And besides that, with their technology and their temperaments, The war would be over way before you ever knew about it, before you ever knew it was started. Because, and I walked through this with people before. Okay, aliens, yes, they've got better toys. Okay, they've got more advanced toys. Many of the ancient races have different abilities, what you would call magic. All of this is explainable and attainable. And no, they are not here to wipe you out. People have been taught through propaganda, through discussions with each other, because it's been fear feeding fear, and it's a real vicious cycle. Okay, now, I come from a world, and that's probably a strange way to put it, but the way I grew up was very simple. Okay, you follow your word. It's the one thing in existence that you actually have that nobody can take from you. They can coerce you into giving it. They can absolutely threaten you, which is another form of more violent coercion. Okay, they can entice you to to alter your word. As in, I had a guy come up to me years ago, and he goes, if I give you $1,000, will you pass this message on to somebody? Now, I knew the message was a lie, and I looked at the guy and I said, I'll take the $1,000. And he, unfortunately for me, he caught on. He goes, well, what about the message? I said, I'm not going to pass on any lie for anybody. I'm not going to lie to you to make you feel better either. Okay. So, and the guy says, well, if you're not going to pass the message, why would I give you $1,000? I said, I don't know, maybe you're nice. Needless to say, I didn't get the $1,000. But here's the thing. Even in many of the Wiccan religions, they have twisted the thing so far out of shape. Okay, magic itself is a wonderful thing. It can be used to enhance life like you would not believe. By the way, so can modern medicine. But you gotta stop working on the principle of fear and greed. Okay, it doesn't work well. That's just the reality of it. So from your standpoint, it is time to look in the mirror and take responsibility for your own actions. Now, I can go back through what's happened to me in the past. Okay, I can go through the mess I went through on the MyLabs. I can go through the way the government dropped the ball. I can go through the way that the professional accountants, in my opinion, for only one purpose, but they guided me down the wrong path. Okay, I was guided by professionals into bankruptcy twice where it never should have happened. Okay. I just found out a couple of days ago. Like I mentioned, I am absolutely I'm debt free now. This is a place that I know how to guide you to, and it starts with your heart. Okay. But here's the thing. I went through professional tax people in order to let them take care of my income tax to file it. Well, I've filed it consistently for 40 years now. And I now find out that in just the last 10 years, between 3 different companies, and they dropped the ball, and I was denied over $100,000 in personal deductions because of a number of things. I'm not going into that. But here's the reality behind what we're looking at. Okay, the reality behind what we're looking at is this. The change has to start here. Now, technically, it starts up here. It starts in the etheric level. Up at the soul, up at source, whatever you want to call it. It comes down. Now, most of you believe that it gets to the mind first. Okay. And it's a toss-up whether it gets to the mind first or whether it gets to the heart first. Myself, people have asked me, why did you do that? And I'll go, well, it felt like the thing to do at the time. Or that's what I was drawn to. That's what it gets to your heart. Most of you get a thought in your head and go, well, I thought that was the best way to do it. I worked through it. Well, here's the thing. You can think what you will. Okay, but until you get that emotional imperative, making it happen is going to be a challenge. You can do it. Okay, you can, through stubborn disposition, go, I said I was going to do it. That's why I'm doing it. Okay. Now, because of the fact that I followed the tools, and this is why I tell people I'm a spiritual guide. Okay. The tools I'm offering you are the same tools I personally use. These are the same tools that have led me on a financial level to become debt free. Okay, and yes, I am in the process of documenting how to do that, to put it into a booklet so you too can do the same thing. Until then, I'm walking people through it one step at a time. I'm also changing the atmosphere of my house by altering the energy in it, by removing the things that are no longer functional, that are holding me back, the things that do not feel right. And I encourage you to do the exact same thing. Take the things that do not feel right. There are things that you're going to look at that you don't desire to do. It's like, I just don't want to do that. Well, no problem. You don't have to. That's where freedom of choice comes in. That's where free will comes in. But you'll find when you start getting rid of the clutter, getting rid of the stuff that you no longer require, that's when you'll find your life starts to change. And it was when I realized that trying to fit into the other groups, trying to fit in with people on this planet, trying to fit in with the people I grew up with, was causing a problem. Okay, it was causing a major problem for me. Okay, it wasn't until I realized that the person I have to come to accept is not everybody out there. It's me. I had to reach a point where I looked in the mirror and went, this is what I desire. This is what I'm doing. Now, I've been very open with people, and it has led to some problems. Many of them my own doing. Okay. So with that in mind, I am simply going to go, I've simply got to keep an eye on that side of it, but that's for me. Okay, for you, absolutely look in the mirror, ask yourself, are you happy with the way you are? Are you happy with the state of your house? Now, my living room, well, that worked well. My living room, because I'm changing, that's where the heart of the home is. The living room, the dining room, and the kitchen combined. Okay. Now I've already moved, I've already cleared out the dining room, so the only thing in it right now is the pantry and the dining room table and chairs. Okay. Now, of course, because I play Dungeons and Dragons, I've got one shelf that handles all my books because we play at the dining room table. So the energy in the dining room is set. The kitchen, well, let's face it, you have your dishes, and you've got that all tidied up. And that's all people tend to have in the kitchen. Okay, the living room is the thing. The living room is where you sit, where you socialize, where you entertain. Some people call it the living room, some people call it the den, some people call it the family room. As Shakespeare put it, a rose by any name would smell as sweet. Okay, well, a living room by any other name has the same purpose. That is where you have your discussions. That is where you sort out complications. Never sort out the complications as somebody's coming through the door, yourself or somebody else, at the dining room table, or in the bedroom. All complicated conversations. Do yourself a favor and move them into the living room. If a negative topic comes up at the dining room, at the dinner table, okay, acknowledge the fact it's got to be dealt with, and commit to sorting it out in the living room once the meal is over. Once the meal is done, you're cleaned up, move to the living room and readdress the problem. Do not leave it sit. All I've seen happen when people postpone facing the complications they've got is it gets worse. Now, I'm guilty of the same thing. Okay, I have made some choices because of the fact that, well, as I've told people, and this is where it sounds really bad, and maybe I shouldn't tell you this. Who knows? You figure it out. But look up the definitions. Because I am very much, over time, because of what I've gone through, I have ended up becoming what you would call a misanthropic philanthropist. Now, you get to look up what that means. Okay. This said, Am I still intent, or am I intent on, for that matter, I'm much more committed to turning on the lights and telling people, look, the path you're going down leads to a dark end. You don't believe me? Take a look at what happened when they did the same thing in Rome. Okay, they did the same thing. They treated people, they treated each other. If they had more money, it's like, oh, there's the special people. Those are the elitists. No, they aren't. They have more money than you, but they are of no more value than anybody else. The richest person on the planet, as far as monetarily speaking, is of no more value than the poorest one. And frankly, by watching the way people are, more often than not, I find the people that have less technology and less of the luxuries, on the whole, yes, they've got a hard life, but on the whole, they seem to be a lot happier. Okay, yeah, they'd absolutely be happier if they had more food. Absolutely. But the ones that are working, even if you talk to the people that are being honest with themselves, that are on social assistance, they will tell you, I'm here that many of them have dug themselves into a rut where where you're now comfortable. Maybe you're in debt and you've been in debt forever and a day, and I was to the point that I literally looked at it and going, I'm going to live on the edge of poverty until I die, and if I'm lucky, I won't get myself into it. I won't live on the street. Thus far, I've been one step ahead. Now, I'm at a point where I can actually make things move, where I can actually start planning for what I desire. And this is the difference between having debt over your head. And yes, I don't care how far in debt you are. Okay, the odds are that we can take a look at what you're going through. You can look at your money, find out where you're spending money, where you're spending too much, like I did. Okay, I don't like cooking. So, of course, when COVID hit, it didn't change anything. I was reclusive anyway. And then they came out with the passport, and I'm looking at it because I knew I was spending too much in the restaurants. I was spending between $350 and $400 a month because I don't like eating, I don't like cooking. So I'd go to the restaurant. Well, when they came out with the passport and said you can't go unless you get the vaccine, and I never did. I never said, don't get it. I never said, oh, it's going to kill you. I said, I'm not getting it. All of my family ended up double vaccinated. Okay, just to be clear on that note. I never did. But at the same time, I looked at it and went, okay, I know I'm spending too much money in the restaurants. They locked the place down, and all of a sudden, I saved about $2,000 in the last 5 months. This is a staggering amount of money when you think about it. Okay, especially when you think that's 2 months' pay complete that I managed to save by not going to the restaurant. Okay, but it boils down to you have to take a look at your own life, at what you're content with. Now, on that note, I will be back again tomorrow. Okay, until then, take care of yourselves and each other, and for pity's sakes, stay positive.